Hi, I'm here today with Tim van der Liepe. Tim, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Tim. I'm a master's student in computer science here at Delft University of Technology. I'm almost done with my master's thesis. And besides that, I'm a maintainer of several open source projects, in this case Mockito and Polymer.
And Tim, can you tell us how software testing happens in Mockito and Polymer?
Yes, I can. So Mockito is a mocking framework in Java, and Java has types, obviously, whereas Polymer is a front-end technology, which is written in JavaScript, so no types for that. So we do have different types, tests to cover types in JavaScript where we don't in Java. However, in general, these repositories I test in the same way. I test using integration and regression tests, where we build a test based on the story of a user. A user wants to do something. We implement it, and then we implement it in our internal implementation as well. We have fewer unit tests like that, but mostly integration and regression tests.
Interesting. And what is the biggest challenge when testing Mockito and Polymer, in your opinion?
There needs to be quite a foundation to be ready there before you can actually do the interesting tests. So in this case, in the earlier stages, we had some trouble getting some tests done. So in this case, unit tests were crucial. But at some point, you will have enough tests available that you can use, that you can go into this integration regression test story. And usually, the biggest challenge is whenever a user creates a bug report on our repository, is transforming this bug report into a concrete test. And that's quite difficult, yet with enough practice, you can make this work.
And do you think it would be possible to have Mockito without tests? Would people be able to contribute to Mockito if Mockito didn't have tests?
No, the answer is no. They wouldn't, simply because I wouldn't be confident that whenever someone makes a contribution, that it wouldn't break existing users. In this case, whenever someone makes a pull request, I receive an email, and without me running the code, I can be confident that existing users will still be able to use the product because we have an existing test suite in place.
Very interesting. And as a developer of a mocking framework, I suppose you advocate for the use of mocks. Can you give us some tips on when developers should and when they should not use mocks?
So the interesting fact is that I myself use mocks in only very specific cases, because I envision a project always to be of a core, where the core is the functionality that we want, and then there's a layer on top of this core that talks to services like the internet or a file system. And the outer layer is perfect to be mocked, because we want the test to be reliable. We want to be able to run these tests continuously without the file system or the internet present. But the core functionality should be without mocks, because that's your product. So I see a lot of students mocking everything they have, even in the core functionality, where I would actually advocate for not doing that and only mock the outer layer.
Interesting. And we have been discussing a lot about unit tests in this course, actually. And you earlier told me that for APIs like Mockito, you preferred to do integration tests. Can you elaborate a bit more on this?
Yes. So this is mostly for me where I use integration and regression tests so that I can later change the functionality in the project without breaking the user. So if I would have a lot of unit tests and I want to change something in the library, I would have to update these tests continuously. And now, by using integration and regression tests, I don't have to change them continuously. Moreover, because I focus on the user in these integration tests, I can make sure that breaking changes are almost never happening. If I would use unit tests and I would have to update them quite continuously, I lose track of this specific property. So if I focus on integration tests, then whenever a test breaks, I know that the user will hit this problem, and I have to prevent that.
That's a very interesting point of view. And my final question, Tim, what's your advice for our students who are starting with software testing right now?
Test a lot and make a lot of mistakes. I was able to contribute to Mockito and make some mistakes on the way, which I hadn't known at that point in time. But the open source maintainer at that time helped me through this process and taught me a lot of things that I did wrong. And I can now reflect on that. And I'm also telling students whenever they come to me these same exact things that you should prevent. So in this case, practice makes perfect. Make a lot of mistakes. The university environment is great for that. The open source environment, mostly, it depends on the maintainer. But if you make these mistakes a lot and learn from them, you will be a better developer in the long run.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.